Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How is everybody doing? We're not doing a stream this morning. We're just going straight into a recorded video. Isaiah 62 says, "For Zion's sake I will not hold my peace, for Jerusalem's sake I will not rest, until the righteousness thereof goes forth as brightness, and the salvation thereof as a lamp that burns. And the Gentiles shall see your righteousness, and all kings your glory, and they shall call you by a new name, which the mouth of the Lord shall name." A new name means you have a new character, a new disposition. That's what that new name is about. And the fact that God will not rest until Zion shines forth is simply speaking about, again, the nature of a person shining outwards and positivity to change the world. Not just a person, but people, a people. So I hope that today that can happen to you, that you will shine out and be a positive influence or a good influence on others. And that your character or your nature would be one in which people are attracted to you, to realize that you're not the same as you were the day before. In the numbers, we get the final tally on Justice League. First of all, when it was doing its theatrical box office run, it accrued somewhere in the vicinity of $656 million. Box Office Mojo says 657. And in its home market sales, it amassed a total of $50 million, somewhere around about that. Now, that's the lowest any DCEU movie has actually raked in. The highest amount was by Man of Steel, and I believe the lowest amount was by Batman v Superman, which is almost $80 million. So $30 million more in the home box office. And then when we're talking internationally and domestically, in terms of theatrical performance, it's a big, about almost $11 million to maybe even more, $12 million less than the nearest tally, which would have been Man of Steel. However, it still has a respectable total at the end of the day. When you combine both home market performance and theatrical performance, it has made over $700 million. Now, I want to really talk to you guys about the difference between a box office flop and a box office bomb. Now, if you go to Wikipedia, they don't really discriminate between that, but there is a difference between a box office flop and a box office bomb. So what is a box office flop? A box office flop is based on expectation. Justice League, the premier ensemble film of the DCEU, was supposed to earn over $1 billion. Supposed to. Literally, it was supposed to. Just the build up towards it, and then just all the different characters in it, it was supposed to build over $1 billion. This was a very realistic expectation. And it fell $300 million short of that. That is what we call a box office flop. There's no way around it. You can't say it's a box office success in any way, shape, or form in that respect. Batman v Superman, which was another team-up film, but a clashing film. It made almost $1 billion when you gross everything together. We're talking about $950 million it made, and so therefore this movie, which had much more superheroes in it in the same universe, should have grossed way nigh higher than that. All right, and it didn't. In fact, it fell short by close to $250 million short of Batman v Superman. There's no excuse for it. However, it is not a box office bomb. And I will show you what box office bombs look like, and you will be able to figure out from there what we're talking about. So, Ghostbusters was a film that came out in 2016. Now, let's look at its production budget first so you can understand what I'm talking about. So, its production budget was $144 million, which is a lot of money. Now, when you gross together its theatrical performance and home market performance, it earned basically $267 million. And that is a tremendous sum of money, to be honest with you, $367 million. However, Ghostbusters needed to earn $240 $44 million to break even, just to break even. It didn't do that. When a movie, its production cost exceeds its earnings by twice its earnings, when it exceeds twice its earnings, then it is a box office bomb. That means it was not financially a success in any way, shape, or form. It didn't even break even, and it failed to even get close to the production cost that it had. Now we have to cater for also the fact that it may have had to gross in as well. Based on sponsorship, some of that cost is taken off or shaven off of it. But even so, you're looking at a movie that grossed in $257 million when it needed to gross in $288 million. That is $21 million. Is it 21 or 31? 88, 57. 230, that's $31 million short of its mark. And even if the sponsorship or the, shall I say, the advertising in it grosses up to $31 million, it would only break even. So that's a big, big loss that Sony incurred on this movie. And we're including here home market performance sales. Okay? Ghostbusters is a box office bomb. Not just a flop, but a bomb. Okay? Now Green Lantern. Green Lantern is a Warner Brothers film. Okay? Now, as you know, Ghostbusters was actually got negative flashback on it for a number of different reasons. They tried to politicize the film as one in which, you have to support feminists and feminism. And Sony tried to actually whip through other critics, have other critics attack a critic for giving it a negative review, and trying to force people to say good things about the film. Something that Disney tries to do as well with the critics. And while the critics were singing praises on the film, and you can go and look right now on Rotten Tomatoes, you will see a favorable critical Rotten Tomato score for the film. Audiences simply lashed back at the film, and so as a result of that, Ghostbusters 2016 bombed. All right, and Sony really pushed it. They tried to keep it in cinemas as long as possible to make sure it could make as much money as possible, and it still never made anything. And this is what we call a box office bomb. Okay, we go a little further back in time to Warner Brothers. Now I'm going to show you their last set of box office bombs. They literally bombed with these movies. Okay, Green Lantern 2011. Green Lantern 2011 theatrical performance, it grossed in $219 million. Let's say $220 million, just to be charitable to them. In its home market performance, it made $46 million. Let's say $47 million. Let's round it off. Okay. Now, at the end of the day, this seems like a reasonable performance until you see what its budget was. Its budget was $200 million. That means it needed to gross in $400 million to break even. This is a box office bomb. Not only did it flop, but it bombed heavily. Okay, we're talking about it needed to make close to, if I'm not mistaken, it needed to gross in $134 million just to break even. And let's just say the sponsorships and advertising was able to cover that somehow, some way. Then it means it would only have broken even. And this is what we call a box office bomb. This is not just a flop. It's bombed at the box office. Okay? Bombed. By the way, Jeff Johns was involved in Green Lantern 2011. Superman Returns. Superman Returns in 2006. It had a worldwide box office of $374 million. And it had a home market performance of $85 million, which is not bad. It's not bad. But the problem with Superman Returns was it cost a whooping $232 million. That means it needed a gross in $464 million to break even. And even with the home box office sales put together, it could only gross in as much as $460 million. It was short by only $4 million, $5 million. But nonetheless, it was short, which means that again, it was a box office bomb. A box office bomb. Now, possibly with sponsorship, it would have, and it's not as bad a box office bomb as, say, Green Lantern, but it's still a box office bomb. And the problem with this is this, that this movie, it can actually be considered a box office flop than a box office bomb, but it never made its money back. And even if the sponsorship allowed it to make its money back, yeah, it might have made a slight profit. Very slight, maybe $4 million, $2 million profit. But at the end of the day, it didn't. So what we have is Superman Returns still being a box office bomb. That is, it was not financially viable in any shape or form. Neither was Green Lantern 2011, especially Green Lantern 2011, and then Ghostbusters 2016. All right? And then finally we have another Warner Brothers film, which was Batman and Robin. And all of these Warner Brothers films I'm talking about, they're light, they're fluffy. Well, Superman Returns is probably the gravest of all of them. It wasn't as funny as the others. But at the end of the day, Warner Brothers tried to appeal to a demographic that they thought would actually respond to their films. With Superman Returns, they thought women would respond to the films. It backfired. With Green Lantern 2011, they thought it would appeal to, because they think it was, it captured the essence of Green Lantern 2011. It would appeal to the fan base that watched the Green Lantern comics. That backfired majorly. Okay, all of these movies I'm talking about were sort of light. They tried to give a lighter take. They tried to do what Marvel is doing. Batman and Robin 1997 was a perfect example of that. The film had a domestic box office of $107 million, international box office of $130 million. It grossed a worldwide box office of $238 million. Its production cost was a whooping $125 million, which means it had to gross $250 million, which means it was $12 million in the red. It was a box office bomb. A box office bomb. Okay? Now let's go back to Justice League. Justice League grossed in much more than all of them, which was $656 million. It had a domestic sales of $50 million. It grossed about $706 million when all is said and done. Its production cost was $300 million, as you can see down below here, which means it needed $600 million to break even, and it went past that by $106 million. It means it grossed money. So while it was a box office flop, it did make enough money to not only break even, but as you can see, make a little bit of profit, $106 million, which means it was not, and it is not, it will never be a box office bomb, but it absolutely is a box office flop. And so that's the difference between a box office bomb and a box office flop, guys. And so I just wanted to make it very clear to you guys that Justice League, the movie Justice League is a movie in which it is not a box office flop, and it will never be. It's not a box office bomb. It will never be a box office bomb, but it is indefinitely a box office flop. It did make some money at the box office, but it made the least amount of money than any of the DCEU movies, and that should be a signal to Warner Brothers. The saving grace of Zack Snyder and the fact that they marketed Zack Snyder's name and that a lot of the movie was done by Zack Snyder was its saving grace. But I can tell you this is a warning to Warner Brothers. I say it over and over again. This is a warning to Warner Brothers that if they try to, in any way, shape, or form, duplicate what they did with Justice League by marvelizing the DCEU, it will not flop, but it will bomb. It will become like Batman and Robin, 1997. It'll become like Superman Returns, 2006. It'll become like Green Lantern, 2011. And just so that people understand, it'll become like Ghostbusters, 2016.